Marcus Chen stared at the acceptance letter on his tablet screen for the 15th time that morning. The Galactic Exchange Program had selected him as one of only 12 humans to attend the prestigious Andromeda University. After years of studying xenobiology and interspecies relations, he was finally getting his chance to live among the stars. The shuttle ride to Station Nexus took 3 days, giving Marcus plenty of time to review his cultural sensitivity training materials. He memorized proper greeting gestures for 17 different species, learned which topics were considered taboo among the Zephyrians, and practiced the correct pronunciation of Thraccari honorifics. What he hadn't prepared for was the reality of actually living with an alien roommate. The dormitory assignments came through his personal communicator as the shuttle docked. Roommate 47B Roommate, Kethvar of the Velthari Collective. Marcus had read about the Velthari during his preparation. They were a tall, slender species with pale blue skin and elongated limbs. Their homeworld orbited a binary star system, giving them a unique circadian rhythm. They were known for their mathematical prowess and their complex social hierarchies. Marcus made his way through the bustling corridors of Station Nexus, past vendors selling exotic foods and students chattering in dozens of languages. The diversity was overwhelming but exhilarating. A group of crystalline beings chimed musical notes at each other while a pack of furry, six-legged creatures bounded past, their backpacks jingling with equipment. Roommate 47B was located in the residential sector, a series of interconnected modules designed to accommodate various species' environmental needs. Marcus pressed his palm against the door scanner and waited as it analyzed his biosignature. The door slid open with a soft hiss. The room was larger than he had expected, with 2 distinct sleeping areas separated by a central common space. The walls displayed a soft, ambient glow that could be adjusted for different species' visual needs. One side of the room was clearly already occupied. Strange geometric patterns adorned the walls, and the air carried a faint scent of ozone and something Marcus couldn't identify. "You must be Marcus," came a voice from behind him. Marcus turned to see his roommate for the first time. Kethvar stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin that seemed to shimmer between pale blue and silver depending on the angle of the light. His eyes were large and dark, set in a face that was both alien and somehow expressive. He wore what appeared to be a simple tunic that shifted colors as he moved. "Yes, that's me," Marcus replied, offering what he hoped was an appropriate greeting gesture. "It's an honor to meet you, Kethvar." The Velthari tilted his head in what Marcus recognized as acknowledgement. "The honor is mutual. I have been curious about human customs ever since I learned of our pairing. Your species has quite a reputation throughout the galaxy." Marcus wasn't sure if that was good or bad, but he decided to take it as a compliment. "I hope I can live up to expectations. I've been studying Velthari culture, but I'm sure there's a lot I don't understand yet." "Understanding comes with time and experience," Kethvar replied, moving gracefully across the room to what appeared to be his study area. "I have prepared some materials that might help you adjust to life here. The station operates on a 26-hour cycle to accommodate the majority of species, which I believe is close to your natural rhythm." Marcus began unpacking his belongings, trying not to stare at his roommate's movements. Everything Kethvar did seemed precise and deliberate, from the way he arranged his possessions to how he interacted with the room's environmental controls. It was like watching a dancer who had rehearsed every gesture. "I should mention," Kethvar said suddenly, causing Marcus to look up from organizing his clothes, "that there may be some customs of my people that seem unusual to you. We Velthari have different concepts of personal space and privacy than many species." "I'm open to learning," Marcus said carefully. "What kind of differences should I expect?" Kethvar paused, seeming to consider his words. "For instance, on my homeworld, bed sharing is customary. Not in the reproductive sense that some species practice, but as a form of social bonding and mutual comfort. We find sleeping alone to be disconnecting." Marcus felt his eyebrows rise involuntarily. This definitely hadn't been covered in his cultural training materials. "Bed sharing? Like, actually sleeping in the same bed?" "Yes, though I understand this may be uncomfortable for humans. Your species values individual sleeping spaces, correct?" I have already arranged for separate sleeping areas to accommodate your preferences. Kethvar gestured toward the two sleeping alcoves. I appreciate that, Marcus said, though he found himself curious about the practice. Can you tell me more about why it's important to your people? Kethvar's expression brightened, and Marcus realized he had asked the right question. Among the Velthari, sleep is not merely a biological necessity but a time of spiritual and emotional synchronization. When we share sleeping space, our biorhythms align, creating a sense of unity and understanding. It strengthens bonds between individuals and promotes harmony within our communities. That's actually fascinating, Marcus said, and he meant it. I never thought about sleep as a social activity. For humans, it's usually considered very private and personal. Yes, I have read about human sleeping customs. You construct elaborate individual sleeping chambers and often become distressed if your sleep is disturbed by others. This suggests that your species uses sleep as a time of vulnerability and retreat rather than connection. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. That's a pretty accurate way to put it. We do see our bedrooms as private sanctuaries. Sharing a bed usually implies either childhood dependence or romantic partnership. Interesting how the same biological process can hold such different cultural meanings, Kethvar observed. I admit, the idea of sleeping in complete isolation seems quite lonely to me, though I respect that it is natural for your kind. The conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from the room's communication system. A holographic display appeared in the center of the common area, showing the university's orientation schedule. Marcus saw that they had a joint session in 2 hours covering interspecies communication protocols. We should prepare for our first class, Kethvar said, moving toward what Marcus assumed was a hygiene area. I believe you will find the professors here quite knowledgeable. Dr. Yaxmill is particularly renowned for her work in cross-cultural understanding. As his roommate disappeared into the hygiene chamber, Marcus sat on his narrow sleeping platform and tried to process everything. The bed-sharing revelation had caught him completely off guard, but Kethvar's explanation made sense within the context of Velthari culture. It wasn't sexual or inappropriate, just a fundamentally different approach to one of humanity's most basic activities. Marcus pulled out his tablet and began making notes. If he was going to succeed in the exchange program, he needed to document these cultural differences and learn from them. The whole point of the program was to foster understanding between species and prepare future diplomats and researchers for interspecies cooperation. When Kethvar emerged from the hygiene chamber, his skin seemed to glow with a soft luminescence that Marcus hadn't noticed before. Is that normal? Marcus asked, pointing at the gentle light emanating from his roommate's skin. Ah, yes. We Velthari absorb and store light energy during our waking hours. It helps regulate our metabolism and provides comfort during darker periods. I hope the glow does not disturb you. Not at all, Marcus replied. It's actually quite beautiful. Do all of your people have this ability? To varying degrees, yes. Those from the darker regions of our homeworld tend to store more light, while those from the brighter areas store less. It is an evolutionary adaptation that has served us well in our binary star system. Marcus made another note on his tablet. Every conversation with Kethvar revealed new aspects of Velthari physiology and culture. He was beginning to understand why the exchange program was considered so valuable for preparing humans for galactic citizenship. Marcus, Kethvar said as they prepared to leave for their first class, I want you to know that I am grateful for your openness to our differences. Many species find Velthari customs challenging to understand. I'm here to learn, Marcus replied. Besides, human customs probably seem just as strange to you. Indeed they do, Kethvar said with what Marcus was learning to recognize as Velthari humor. Your custom of consuming heated plant extracts in liquid form first thing upon waking is particularly puzzling. Coffee? Marcus laughed. Yeah, I guess that must seem weird if you don't need stimulants to wake up. We derive our morning energy from stored light. The idea of ingesting a substance to achieve alertness suggests that human sleep is not as restorative as ours. As they walked through the corridors toward their first class, Marcus realized that this conversation would be the first of many that would challenge his assumptions about what was normal or natural. Every species had evolved different solutions to the same basic problems of survival and social organization. The lecture hall was a massive amphitheater designed to accommodate various species' physical needs. Some students sat in traditional chair-like structures, while others coiled on specially designed platforms or floated in containment fields. Marcus and Kethvar found seats near the middle of the hall, where Marcus could observe the incredible diversity of his fellow students. Dr. Yaxmill turned out to be a quarren, a species Marcus recognized from his studies. She had multiple tentacles instead of arms and spoke through a complex series of whistles and clicks that were translated by the hall's universal communication system. Welcome, students, to your first lesson in practical interspecies relations, Dr. Yaxmill began. You are here because you represent the future of galactic cooperation. Each of you comes from a different world, with different customs, different biology, and different ways of understanding existence itself. Marcus glanced at Kethvar, who was listening intently, his skin flickering with patterns of light that Marcus was beginning to suspect might be a form of emotional expression. Over the coming weeks, you will be challenged to question your most basic assumptions about how intelligent life should behave. You will discover that practices you consider normal or natural may be incomprehensible to others, while customs that seem bizarre to you may be fundamental to another species' survival and well-being. The professor's words resonated with Marcus as he thought about his conversation with Kethvar about bed sharing. What seemed like a simple cultural difference might actually represent a fundamental divergence in how their species had evolved to meet their social and psychological needs. Your first assignment, Dr. Yaxmill continued, is to spend the next week documenting one significant cultural difference between you and your roommate. I want you to go beyond surface observations and try to understand the deeper evolutionary, psychological, or social factors that shape these differences. Marcus felt a surge of excitement. This was exactly why he had applied to the exchange program. He wasn't just learning about alien cultures in the abstract. He was living with them, forming relationships, and gaining the kind of deep understanding that could only come from personal experience. As the lecture concluded and students began filing out of the hall, Kethvar turned to Marcus. I believe we already have our assignment topic identified. The bed-sharing custom? Marcus guessed. Indeed. Though I suspect there is much more to explore than we initially realized. Human sleeping customs may reveal insights about your species' development of individual identity and personal autonomy. Marcus nodded, already thinking about the research he would need to conduct. And studying Valtheri sleep customs might help me understand how your people developed such strong community bonds. This should be a most illuminating week, Kethvar said as they made their way back to their shared quarters. Marcus couldn't help but agree. He had expected to learn about alien cultures during his time at Andromeda University, but he was beginning to realize that he would also be learning about humanity itself, seeing his own species through alien eyes for the first time. That evening, as Marcus lay in his individual sleeping alcove and Kethvar settled into his own space across the room, Marcus found himself wondering what it would feel like to share the comfort and connection that his roommate's people experienced during sleep. The thought didn't disturb him as much as it probably should have, and he began to suspect that this assignment would reveal more about himself than he had anticipated. The next few days passed in a blur of classes, research, and increasingly fascinating conversations with Kethvar. Marcus discovered that his roommate was studying quantum mathematics with a focus on interdimensional theory, while also pursuing a minor in comparative sociology. The Valtheri's dual interests in hard science and social studies seemed perfectly natural to him, though Marcus found the combination intriguing. On my homeworld, Kethvar explained one evening as they worked on their respective assignments, there is no separation between understanding the universe and understanding each other. Mathematics describes the patterns that govern all existence, while sociology reveals how conscious beings create meaning within those patterns. Marcus looked up from his tablet, where he had been reviewing research on human sleep evolution. That's a beautiful way to think about it. Humans tend to compartmentalize knowledge much more strictly. We have scientists who study the physical world and social scientists who study behavior, and they don't always communicate with each other effectively. How curious, Kethvar said, his skin flickering with the soft patterns Marcus had learned indicated deep thought. Perhaps this compartmentalization is related to your individualistic sleeping customs. If humans retreat into isolation to process their daily experiences, it would make sense that your knowledge systems would also become isolated. The observation stopped Marcus cold. He had never considered that there might be connections between individual human traits and broader cultural patterns. You might be onto something there. Let me ask you this: when Velthari share sleep, do you also share thoughts or experiences somehow? Kethvar's skin brightened noticeably, shifting from pale blue to a warm silver. Marcus had learned that this color change usually indicated pleasure or excitement. You are very perceptive, Marcus. Yes, when our biorhythms synchronize during shared sleep, we often experience what you might call dream resonance. Not direct telepathy, but a sharing of emotional states and, sometimes, symbolic imagery. That's incredible, Marcus said, setting down his tablet completely. So when your people sleep together, you're literally sharing parts of your subconscious experience? In a sense, yes. It creates deep bonds and helps resolve conflicts between individuals. If two Velthari have disagreed during the day, sharing sleep allows them to experience each other's emotional perspective, often leading to understanding and reconciliation by morning. Marcus tried to imagine what it would be like to share his dreams with another person. The idea was both fascinating and terrifying. What about privacy? Don't individuals sometimes need mental space to process things alone? We do have private sleeping chambers for times when solitude is necessary, Kethvar explained. But such isolation is typically used only during periods of grief, illness, or intense personal reflection. Extended isolation is considered unhealthy and is often a sign that someone needs community support. Whereas humans actively seek isolation for rest and recovery, Marcus mused. We see privacy as essential for mental health, while you see connection as essential. It's like our species evolved completely opposite solutions to the same basic psychological needs. Their conversation was interrupted by a gentle chime from the room's communication system. Dr. Yaxmill's image appeared on the holographic display, addressing all students enrolled in her course. Students, I hope your research into cultural differences is progressing well. Tomorrow, we will be conducting an experiential learning exercise. You and your roommate will be required to participate in each other's customs for a 24-hour period. This will give you direct insight into how cultural practices feel from the inside, rather than just observing them from the outside. Marcus felt his stomach flutter with nervousness. He had a pretty good idea what this might mean for him and Kethvar. Participation is voluntary, Dr. Yaxmill continued, but those who choose not to participate will need to complete an alternative assignment involving extensive theoretical research. I encourage you to step outside your comfort zones. Growth requires discomfort. The message ended, leaving Marcus and Kethvar staring at each other across their common room. I believe I know what this means for us, Kethvar said gently. You would want me to try the bed-sharing custom, Marcus said, surprised by how calm his voice sounded despite his racing heart. Only if you are comfortable with it, Kethvar replied quickly. I would not want to make you feel pressured or violated. Your privacy customs are important to your well-being, just as our connection customs are important to ours. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering. The logical part of his mind pointed out all the reasons why sharing a bed with an alien roommate was a terrible idea. But another part of him, the part that had driven him to apply for the exchange program in the first place, was intensely curious about what the experience might reveal. What would I need to do? Marcus asked finally. I mean, practically speaking, how does bed sharing work for your people? Kethvar's skin shifted to a warm, encouraging glow. It is quite simple, actually. We would prepare for sleep as normal, but share the same sleeping surface. The key is to remain relaxed and open to the synchronization process. Our biorhythms naturally align when we are in close proximity during rest. And you said there might be dream sharing? Possibly, though it often takes several nights of shared sleep for deep resonance to develop. You might experience some emotional echoes or symbolic imagery that feels foreign to your usual dreams. Marcus made his decision before he could overthink it. All right. I want to try it. But I should probably try your custom first, so you can guide me through it. What would you be doing for the human custom? I believe I would be spending a full day and night in complete social isolation, correct? No shared meals, no casual conversation, processing all experiences individually? The description made Marcus realize how lonely typical human behavior might seem to a species that thrived on connection. It's not usually that extreme, but, yes, emphasizing individual space and private processing time. It will be challenging, Kethvar admitted. But I am curious to understand how humans achieve emotional balance without the support of shared experience. They spent the evening preparing for their experiment. Kethvar explained more about Velthari's sleep customs, including the importance of remaining calm and receptive during the synchronization process. Marcus, meanwhile, set up protocols for Kethvar's day of human-style isolation, including individual meals and private study time. There is one more thing, Kethvar said as they prepared for bed. During shared sleep, it is normal for there to be some physical contact. Nothing inappropriate, but Velthari often maintain light touch points during sleep to facilitate biorhythm synchronization. Marcus felt his face grow warm, but nodded. Like holding hands? Something like that, yes. Or simply ensuring that our arms or shoulders are touching. The contact helps our nervous systems recognize each other and begin the alignment process. They had decided to use Kethvar's sleeping platform, which was larger and designed to accommodate the Velthari's longer limbs. Marcus settled onto the strange material, which seemed to adjust itself to his body temperature and shape. It was surprisingly comfortable. Are you certain you wish to proceed? Kethvar asked one final time as he settled onto the platform beside Marcus. Yes, Marcus replied, and found that he meant it. I think this is exactly the kind of experience I came here to have. Kethvar dimmed the room's lighting with a gesture, and they lay side by side in comfortable darkness. After a moment, Marcus felt Kethvar's hand brush against his arm. Is this acceptable? The Velthari asked softly. It's fine, Marcus replied, though his heart was beating fast enough that he was sure Kethvar could sense it. For the first hour, Marcus remained acutely aware of every sensation. The alien warmth of Kethvar's skin, the gentle luminescence that continued even as his roommate slept, the subtle difference in breathing patterns between their species. But, gradually, something strange began to happen. Marcus found his own breathing slowing and deepening, matching the rhythm of the being beside him. His racing thoughts began to quiet, replaced by a sense of profound calm he had never experienced before. It was as if the anxiety and mental chatter that usually accompanied his transition to sleep simply melted away. When he finally drifted off, Marcus's dreams were unlike anything he had ever experienced. Instead of the usual chaotic jumble of images and emotions from his own life, he found himself in vast spaces filled with binary stars and geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with meaning. He felt emotions that weren't quite his own, a sense of wonder and mathematical beauty that he recognized as fundamentally Velthari. But, most remarkably, he didn't feel invaded or violated by these foreign elements in his dreams. Instead, he felt expanded, as if his consciousness had been gently stretched to accommodate new forms of beauty and understanding. Marcus woke the next morning feeling more rested than he had in years. Beside him, Kethvar was already awake, watching him with what appeared to be fascination. How do you feel? Kethvar asked gently. Amazing, actually, Marcus replied honestly. I've never experienced anything like that. The dreams were incredible. I experienced something similar, Kethvar said, his skin flickering with patterns Marcus was beginning to associate with excitement. Your dream patterns are quite different from ours. Very dynamic and emotionally rich, but also more chaotic. I found it stimulating. They lay there for a few more minutes, both processing the experience. Marcus felt a strange reluctance to leave the sleeping platform and return to normal activities. The sense of connection and understanding he had experienced during the night seemed too precious to simply abandon. I think I understand now why your people consider sleeping alone to be unhealthy, Marcus said finally. And I believe I'm beginning to appreciate why humans value privacy, Kethvar replied. The intensity of shared experience is wonderful, but I can see how it might sometimes be overwhelming for a species that processes emotions differently than we do. Over breakfast, they discussed what they had learned from their abbreviated experiment. Marcus found himself viewing his own species' customs with new eyes. The human emphasis on individual space and private processing suddenly seemed less like a natural law and more like one possible solution to the challenge of maintaining psychological balance. "Today will be my turn to experience isolation," Kefvar said, though Marcus could see the apprehension in the subtle dimming of his roommate's skin tone. "Remember, you can stop the experiment at any time if it becomes too uncomfortable," Marcus assured him. "The point is to learn, not to cause distress." Marcus spent the day observing Kefvar's responses to enforced solitude. What he saw challenged many of his assumptions about the benefits of privacy and individual space. While humans often used alone time to recharge and process experiences, Kefvar seemed to become increasingly agitated and uncertain as the day progressed. By evening, the Velthari's usual graceful confidence had given way to visible anxiety. His skin had lost much of its luminescence, taking on a dull, grayish tone that Marcus found alarming. "I think that's enough," Marcus said when Kefvar nearly dropped his dinner while eating alone. "You've definitely experienced enough isolation for research purposes." Kefvar's relief was visible as his skin immediately began to brighten. "Thank you. I had not realized how dependent we are on social connection for basic emotional regulation." The experience was quite distressing. That evening, they compiled their observations for Dr. Yaxmill's assignment. What had started as a simple exploration of different sleeping customs had revealed fundamental differences in how their species had evolved to maintain psychological and social stability. "I think," Marcus said as they worked, "that this experiment has shown me something important about humanity that I never recognized before." "What is that?" Kefvar asked. "We're not just individualistic by preference. We're individualistic by necessity. Humans are emotionally intense in a way that would probably be overwhelming in a telepathically connected society. We need privacy and mental space because our inner lives are too chaotic to share safely with others. While we Velthari are perhaps too dependent on external validation and shared experience," Kefvar replied thoughtfully. "Without connection to others, we lose our sense of identity and purpose." Marcus nodded, then had another thought. "But what if there's a middle ground? What if both approaches have something valuable to offer?" "What do you mean?" "Well, I felt incredible after experiencing your bed-sharing custom. More rested and peaceful than I've ever been. And you've mentioned that you sometimes need private sleeping chambers for processing difficult experiences. Maybe both of our species could benefit from learning elements of the other's approach." Kefvar's skin brightened with excitement. "You are suggesting cultural exchange rather than cultural observation." "Exactly. Instead of just studying our differences, maybe we should be exploring how we can learn from each other." As they submitted their assignment that night, Marcus realized that his time at Andromeda University was going to be far more transformative than he had ever imagined. He had come here expecting to learn about alien cultures, but he was discovering entirely new ways of being human. Word of Marcus and Kefvar's experimental approach to their cultural exchange assignment spread quickly through the student body. Dr. Yaxmill had shared their findings with the rest of the faculty, praising their willingness to move beyond observation into actual cultural synthesis. Within a week, other roommate pairs were requesting permission to conduct similar experiments with their own cultural differences. "You have started something of a revolution," Dr. Yaxmill told Marcus and Kefvar during their follow-up meeting. "The administration is very interested in developing formal protocols for experiential cultural exchange based on your work." Marcus felt a surge of pride, but also responsibility. "We just followed our curiosity," he said. "I think the key was that we approached each other's customs with genuine respect rather than just academic interest." "Indeed," Kefvar added, his skin showing the warm silver patterns that indicated deep satisfaction. "We discovered that true understanding requires vulnerability and trust, not just intellectual analysis." Dr. Yaxmill's tentacles curled and what Marcus had learned was the Quarren equivalent of a smile. "Which brings me to my next request. The Galactic Cultural Council has heard about your work and would like you to present your findings at their next symposium. They are particularly interested in developing new frameworks for interspecies cooperation based on your synthesis approach. Marcus and Kethvar exchanged glances. The Galactic Cultural Council was one of the most prestigious organizations in known space, responsible for mediating conflicts and facilitating understanding between hundreds of different species. What would this presentation involve? Marcus asked carefully. You would demonstrate your bed-sharing synthesis technique with volunteer participants from different species, showing how cultural exchange can create new forms of understanding that benefit all parties involved. The magnitude of what Dr. Yaxmill was suggesting hit Marcus like a physical force. They weren't just being asked to share their research, they were being invited to help reshape how the galaxy approached interspecies relations. I am honored by the invitation, Kethvar said formally, but I believe this decision must be made carefully. What we have discovered has implications beyond academic study. Marcus nodded in agreement. Over the past month, he and Kethvar had continued their sleep-sharing experiments, refining their technique and discovering new aspects of the experience. They had learned to modulate the level of dream resonance, finding ways to share emotional states without overwhelming each other's individual consciousness. The results had been remarkable for both of them. Marcus found that regular sleep-sharing sessions had dramatically improved his emotional regulation and stress management. The sense of connection and understanding he gained from experiencing Kethvar's dreams had expanded his perspective on almost every aspect of life. Meanwhile, Kethvar had begun incorporating periods of individual reflection into his routine, using the processing techniques he had observed in Marcus to deepen his mathematical research. But they had also discovered that the technique required careful preparation and genuine trust between participants. When they had attempted to share the experience with other student pairs, the results had been mixed. Some species seemed naturally compatible with the synthesis approach, while others found it uncomfortable or even distressing. What kind of timeline are we looking at? Marcus asked. The symposium is in 6 weeks. That would give you time to prepare a formal presentation and, perhaps, conduct some controlled experiments with other species here at the university. Marcus felt his excitement building despite his caution. Kethvar, what do you think? His roommate was quiet for a long moment, his skin cycling through subtle color changes that Marcus had learned indicated deep consideration. I think, Kethvar said finally, that we have an opportunity to contribute something meaningful to galactic civilization. But we must approach this responsibly. What do you mean? Dr. Yaxmill asked. The synthesis technique we have developed works well for Marcus and myself because we have built trust and understanding over time. If this approach is to be used more broadly, we need to develop proper protocols for ensuring participant safety and consent. Marcus felt a surge of affection for his roommate. This was exactly the kind of thoughtful, ethical approach that made Kethvar such an excellent research partner. You're absolutely right, Marcus said. We should spend the next few weeks working with Dr. Yaxmill to develop safety guidelines and testing the technique with a broader range of species. Dr. Yaxmill's approval was evident in the pleased whistling sound she made. Excellent. I will arrange for volunteers from various species backgrounds. We can use the university's xenopsychology labs to monitor the physiological and psychological effects of the synthesis process. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Kethvar worked with an increasingly diverse group of students and faculty members. They discovered that the bed-sharing synthesis technique could be adapted to work with many different species, though each required unique modifications. The crystalline Zarathi, for example, couldn't share physical sleeping space due to their radically different environmental needs, but they could achieve a similar synthesis effect through harmonic resonance during their dormancy periods. The aquatic delphinians found that shared floating meditation produced comparable results to the bed-sharing technique. Most remarkably, they discovered that humans seemed to have an unusual talent for adapting to other species' consciousness-sharing practices. While many species could only achieve synthesis with others who had similar neurological patterns, humans appeared capable of forming resonance connections across much broader biological and psychological differences. It's as if human consciousness is unusually flexible, Dr. Yaxmill observed after reviewing their data. Most species have very specific patterns of thought and emotion that evolved for their particular environmental and social conditions. But humans seem capable of stretching their mental patterns to accommodate almost any form of alien consciousness. Marcus found this observation both fascinating and puzzling. Why would humans have evolved that kind of flexibility? We developed on a single world with only one sapient species. Perhaps, Kethvar suggested, human consciousness evolved to be adaptable because your species developed such diverse cultures and social structures on your homeworld. The same flexibility that allows humans from different cultures to understand each other might also allow you to understand alien consciousness. The theory seemed to be supported by their experimental results. Human participants consistently showed the fastest adaptation rates and the most successful synthesis experiences across species barriers. Marcus began to suspect that this flexibility might be humanity's unique contribution to galactic civilization. Think about it, Marcus said to Kethvar one evening as they prepared for their own synthesis session. Every species we've met has developed highly specialized approaches to consciousness and social organization. But humans seem to be generalists. We're not the best at any one thing, but we can learn to do almost anything. Which would make humans ideal mediators and cultural bridges, Kethvar replied, his excitement evident in the bright patterns flowing across his skin. Your species could serve as translators not just of language, but of consciousness itself. The implications were staggering. If humans could indeed serve as universal consciousness adapters, it would revolutionize everything from diplomacy to scientific collaboration. Species that had been unable to work together due to fundamental differences in thinking patterns might be able to cooperate through human intermediaries. When the day of the symposium arrived, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness that reminded him of his first day at Andromeda University. The venue was a massive amphitheater on Station Nexus, designed to accommodate representatives from hundreds of different species. The audience included diplomats, scientists, and cultural leaders from across the galaxy. Marcus and Kethvar had prepared a presentation that combined theoretical explanation with live demonstration. They had recruited volunteers from 12 different species to participate in modified synthesis exercises, each tailored to the participants' specific physiological and psychological needs. Honored representatives, Marcus began, his voice carried throughout the amphitheater by Universal Translation Systems. 6 months ago, I came to Andromeda University expecting to learn about alien cultures. What I discovered instead was a new way of understanding consciousness itself. He and Kethvar took turns explaining their research, describing how what had started as a simple exploration of sleeping customs had evolved into a broader investigation of consciousness synthesis across species barriers. They showed brain scan data demonstrating the neurological changes that occurred during successful synthesis sessions, and psychological assessment results showing the positive effects on participants' emotional well-being and cognitive flexibility. But the real impact came during the live demonstrations. Marcus worked with volunteers from species as diverse as the gaseous ethereals and the silicon-based crystarchs, showing how human consciousness could adapt to form resonance connections with radically different forms of awareness. Each successful connection was met with amazed murmurs from the audience. The most dramatic demonstration involved Marcus attempting synthesis with a hive-mind collective organism called the Convergence. No individual species had ever successfully interfaced with convergence consciousness, as their collective awareness was simply too alien for most singular minds to comprehend. Marcus lay on a specialized platform connected to monitoring equipment while the Convergence representative, a writhing mass of interconnected organic filaments, positioned itself nearby. Dr. Yaxmel and her team monitored Marcus's vital signs as he slowly opened his consciousness to the collective experience. For a terrifying moment, Marcus felt his individual awareness beginning to dissolve into the vast, interconnected network of the Convergence mind. But then, his human adaptability kicked in, allowing him to maintain his individual identity while simultaneously experiencing the collective perspective. The sensation was indescribable. Marcus found himself aware of thousands of individual thoughts and experiences all occurring simultaneously, yet somehow his human mind was able to process and organize this information without being overwhelmed. He could feel the Convergence's surprise and delight as they experienced singular consciousness for the first time, while he gained unprecedented insight into the nature of collective awareness. When the connection finally ended, the amphitheater was silent for a long moment. Then, the Convergence representative spoke, their collective voice resonating through the hall's communication systems. For the first time in our existence, we have experienced what it means to be alone with one's thoughts. This human has given us a gift of understanding that we never knew was possible. Similarly, we believe we have shared with him insights into the nature of unity and collective purpose that no singular being has ever achieved. The response from the assembled delegates was overwhelming. Species representatives who had barely been able to communicate with each other began discussing potential collaboration projects facilitated by human consciousness bridges. Diplomatic possibilities that had seemed impossible suddenly appeared within reach. Dr. Yaxmill concluded the presentation by announcing the establishment of the Consciousness Synthesis Institute, a new organization dedicated to developing and refining these techniques for broader application. Marcus and Kethvar would serve as the founding directors, working to train other humans in synthesis techniques and establish protocols for safe interspecies consciousness sharing. As the symposium ended and delegates began filing out, many stopped to speak with Marcus and Kethvar personally. The enthusiasm was infectious, but Marcus also felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Are you overwhelmed?" Kethvar asked as they finally returned to their quarters that evening. "A little," Marcus admitted. 6 months ago I was just a xenobiology student from Earth. Now apparently I'm going to be directing an institute that could reshape galactic civilization." "You are not alone in this endeavor," Kethvar reminded him, his skin glowing with warm, supportive patterns. "We will face these challenges together, as we have from the beginning." Marcus smiled, feeling some of his anxiety ease. "You're right. And, honestly, I can't think of anyone I'd rather have as a partner in this work." "Nor can I," Kethvar replied. "Though I should mention something that has become clear to me over these past months." "What's that?" "On my homeworld, bed sharing between individuals who are not biologically related typically indicates the formation of a permanent life partnership. I believe what humans would call marriage." Marcus felt his face flush, but found that the idea didn't disturb him as much as it might have 6 months earlier. "And how do you feel about that?" Kethvar's skin shifted to the deep, warm gold that Marcus had learned indicated profound contentment. "I believe that our partnership, whether one calls it research collaboration or life bonding, has already proven itself to be quite successful." Marcus laughed, remembering his initial nervousness about sharing a room with an alien. "I think you're right. Though I have to say, when you first mentioned bed sharing being customary on your homeworld, I never imagined it would lead to this." "Nor did I," Kethvar agreed. "But perhaps that is the most human lesson of all, that the most remarkable discoveries often come from simply remaining open to new possibilities." As they settled into their shared sleeping platform that night, Marcus reflected on the incredible journey that had brought him to this point. He had come to Andromeda University seeking knowledge about alien cultures, but he had found something far more valuable, a deeper understanding of consciousness itself, and his own species' unique role in the galaxy's future. The synthesis technique they had developed was already being adapted by research teams across known space. Within a few years, consciousness bridges facilitated by trained humans might be routine tools for diplomacy, scientific collaboration, and cultural exchange. Barriers that had separated species for millennia were beginning to dissolve. But, more personally, Marcus had discovered that the boundaries between self and other, familiar and alien, were far more flexible than he had ever imagined. In learning to share consciousness with Kethvar and other alien species, he had not lost his humanity, he had found new ways of expressing it. As sleep began to claim him, Marcus felt the familiar sensation of his consciousness expanding to embrace Kethvar's awareness. Tonight, as every night, their dreams would weave together in patterns of understanding that transcended the limitations of any single species. And, tomorrow, they would continue the work of building bridges across the vast diversity of galactic consciousness, one shared dream at a time. The future of human-alien relations had never looked brighter, and it had all started with a simple conversation about sleeping arrangements between roommates. In the end, Marcus thought as he drifted off to sleep, perhaps the most profound discoveries really did begin with the most ordinary moments of openness and curiosity about the experiences of others.